At the beginning of the story, we see human evolution reaching a critical turning point where intelligence takes an unexpected turn. However, since humans already dominate the food chain, their evolution shifts toward making people progressively dumber. In this situation, U.S. Army librarian Corporal Joe Bowers gets approached by his military superiors for a classified experiment. Joe planned to stay a librarian until retirement, but has no choice except to follow orders. General Collins presents his revolutionary ideas to high-ranking military officials in a secret meeting. Scientists have invented a human hibernation pod that preserves people indefinitely, allowing them to save their finest specimens and revive them during emergencies. They chose Joe as the first test subject because he represents the most average man in the military with no immediate family. The experiment needs a female subject, but they lack suitable military candidates. Collins selects Rita, a prostitute, showing uncomfortable photos of himself partying with her manager Upgrade. He announces both subjects will enter hibernation pods tomorrow for a one-year experiment. The next day, Joe and Rita sit together in a military waiting room. Joe introduces himself and asks Rita about her military sector. Rita lies, claiming she's a painter instead of revealing her true profession. Medical technicians connect them to sleek hibernation pods. Rita panics upon seeing the pod and tries escaping, but Joe reassures her the scientists know what they're doing. He tells her they'll only be inside for 1 year, so everything will be fine. Both subjects get sealed inside their respective hibernation pods as the experiment begins. Disaster strikes immediately when Collins gets arrested in a massive prostitution sting operation. Upgrade also gets arrested as the ringmaster of the prostitution network. During the chaos, the building housing the pods gets demolished without anyone remembering the classified experiment inside. Joe and Rita lie dormant in their pods as years turn into decades, then centuries. While their situation looks terrible, humans evolve into stupider beings at a frightening rate across the globe. Scientific charts show average intelligence declining consistently over time. Throughout these centuries, people can't solve basic problems like garbage disposal. Garbage gets stacked carelessly for hundreds of years with no organized plan. This creates the Great Garbage Avalanche of 2505, which causes Joe's hibernation pod to crash into a random house. Joe emerges feeling dizzy and confused about his surroundings. The house belongs to Frito Pendejo, who completely ignores the garbage pile and strange man in his living room. Frito continues watching bizarre TV shows, only getting up to kicks Joe out the window without explanation. The outside world appears alien and confusing to Joe, who thinks only 1 year has passed. He encounters people communicating in crude slang and primitive grunts. Joe understands their basic meaning, but when he speaks normally, they call him slurs and chase him away. Feeling dizzy, Joe seeks medical attention at a nearby hospital. At reception, he tells the woman he's from the army and needs help. The receptionist doesn't understand and simply presses random buttons on her desk. A computerized voice directs Joe to the diagnostic area. Joe tries drinking from a water fountain, but it dispenses Brawndo energy drink instead. When he asks someone where to find regular water, the person laughs hysterically. In the diagnostic area, Joe must insert plugs into his mouth, ear, and butt. The health professional mismatches the plugs already in specific areas. Joe completes the disgusting procedure and gets sent to a doctor. While waiting, he sees 2505 written on a magazine but dismisses it as a misprint. The doctor arrives and answers all Joe's health questions with kick-ass. He declares Joe retarded and demands a $5 billion fee. Joe notices 2505 written on the bill and finally realizes he's been hibernating for 500 years. Joe looks out the window and sees buildings collapsing onto each other, held together by ropes, surrounded by garbage mountains. The doctor freaks out because Joe lacks a citizen tattoo on his wrist. Joe panics and runs from the hospital while the doctor calls police for unpaid bills. The #1 movie being called Joe watches the Oscar-winning movie, which shows someone's behind for 90 straight minutes. That night, police arrest Joe for being unscannable and take him to court. His lawyer happens to be Frito Pendejo, who makes fun of him while everyone laughs. Joe presents his case sensibly, explaining why he's unscannable, but the lawyers and judge just laugh. The judge declares him guilty and sentences him to jail. Meanwhile, Rita emerges from her pod trying to contact Upgrade. The phone demands $2,000 to connect the call. Rita approaches a man, tricks him, and steals his money. Joe gets taken to an automated tattoo station for citizen identification tattoos. When asked his name, Joe explains he's unsure what's happening. The machine reads his name as Not Sure and tattoos it on his wrist. Everyone starts calling him Not Sure. Joe takes an aptitude and IQ test, answering basic addition questions correctly while others can't identify simple shapes. At prison, Joe realizes everyone in this world is incredibly stupid. He tells the guard he's supposed to be released today. The stupid guard lets him walk away, but alarms catch the escaped inmate and police chase him through streets. Joe escapes escapes and returns to Frito's place. He believes someone created a time machine in 500 years and asks Frito's help. Frito refuses until Joe promises $8 billion for assistance. Frito reveals he knows where the time machine is located. Police knock on the door looking for Joe. They escape through the window and drive toward the museum, picking up Rita, who's still scamming the same guy. Rita worries Upgrade will come looking for money she owes him, unaware he's been dead for centuries. While driving, something scans Joe's wrist and alerts police to his location. The car battery dies and they abandon it as police arrive shooting. A massive fight breaks out as Joe, Frito, and Rita run toward the time machine. Joe takes them to Costco, now the center of all commerce, where he claims to have studied law. While waiting for the metro, Rita goes to the bathroom. Before she returns, Joe's wrist gets accidentally scanned and alerts the entire place to a criminal's presence. Frito boards the arriving metro, but Joe waits for Rita and gets captured by police. This time, they take him to the White House instead of prison. Joe meets President Camacho and his secretaries in confusion. Camacho mocks him, expecting Joe's head to be bigger since he's supposedly smart. The IQ test Joe took in prison surprised everyone because he scored the highest they'd ever seen. Due to his intelligence, the president makes Joe the new Secretary of Interior. They go to the House of Representatives, where President Camacho announces their new Secretary of Interior, Mr. Not Sure, will solve food scarcity and dust storm problems. The president promises to pardon Joe's prison time if he solves these issues. During a cabinet meeting, secretaries ask Joe to say something smart. Joe speaks random complicated words, convincing them he's genuinely intelligent. Joe asks Frito to draw a map showing the time machine's location while he distracts the secretaries. Later, he takes them to fields where crops should grow and requests Rita's help. At the field, Frito secretly hands Joe the map, which turns out to be just a simple line drawing. Joe realizes people water crops with Brondo energy drink instead of water. He holds a cabinet meeting proposing they use water for crops instead. The secretaries think his idea is terrible, so Joe tells them he can communicate with plants and they want water. Everything goes according to plan for several days. Soon, Brondo stocks drop to zero due to decreased production, leaving half the population unemployed. Angry citizens riot outside the White House. News announces Joe's court trial for causing unemployment and he gets proven guilty. His sentence is 1 night in rehabilitation. In this world, rehabilitation means a criminal gets chased by a massive truck in an arena while crowds cheer for the truck. Rehabilitation usually ends with the criminal's death. Joe gets taken to the arena while Rita sadly returns to the White House, ready to find the time machine with Frito. The rehabilitation gets broadcast on national television as Joe drives a small car while being chased by the massive killing truck. Rita notices a rose plant growing outside and realizes Joe's watering idea worked. She asks Frito to take her to the arena, planning to broadcast footage of growing crops so Joe's punishment gets pardoned. Joe continues trying to survive the death truck pursuit. Rita reaches the arena on time and bribes a cameraman to film the growing crops with Frito. She takes over the control panel in the monitoring room. Frito reaches the field and films the thriving crops. The footage broadcasts on the large screen, and President Camacho saves Joe from being killed, pardoning his punishment as the crowd erupts in cheers. Everyone celebrates with a party in the White House. Rita reveals she doesn't want returning home because she prefers this future. Joe feels surprised but doesn't force her to come with him. They say their final goodbye, but President Camacho calls Joe on stage and declares him the new vice president. Everyone looks at Joe with hopeful eyes, making him agree to stay in 2505. Someone calls the time machine a stupid ride. Frito takes confused Joe to the machine, finally revealing it's actually just a children's amusement park ride. Several months later, Joe gets elected president of the United States with Rita becoming his wife and first lady. Under his leadership, a new era begins where people hope humans can become smart again. He has 3 children with Rita who become known as the smartest kids in the world, giving humanity hope for recovery.